Thank you for your patience today while we worked on some technical difficulties, but we're ready to present to you some representatives from the U.S. Department of State. This is Nora and Ms. Bridget, and they're going to tell you a little bit more about their virtual service program for students.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. We're delighted to be at Ivy Tech Community College because, as we've been told since our arrival in Indiana, Ivy Tech is everywhere. So we're glad to have this chance to reach out to so many people of so many different skill sets, and we want to talk about all the ways in which the State Department needs you. And we're here on behalf, we work in a little tiny division called e-diplomacy inside a bureau called
the Bureau of Information Resource Management.
So the Bureau of Information Resource Management really means the computer part of the State Department. And we work on e-diplomacy, which combines technology with diplomacy. So Bridget and I are an innovation team, and all we do really is work on new ways to approach diplomacy with emerging technologies inside it. And that's, the E of e-diplomacy really should fall off now, because E is everywhere. I mean, everything is E. And I was saying to Bridget in the car, I could spend a lifetime in the Foreign Service, and 20 years ago, nobody would have spent money from the State Department sending us out to talk to people about the many ways in which they could help the State Department, but particularly those people who are expert in IT. So people who really understand that IT is everywhere and IT needs to be incorporated into the work of the State Department at every level. So as we said, I spent a lifetime in the Foreign Service, so in diplomacy. And Bridget?
And I grew up in the Foreign Service, so most of my career has been domestically, which is called the Civil Service. So there's both Civil Service and Foreign Service, both excellent opportunities. It depends what you're interested in.
Right. And in the Foreign Service, there's a couple of tracks. If you're a poli-sci major, or you're thinking maybe law school, or you're thinking, gosh, I like history, then maybe you should take the Foreign Service exam. And the Foreign Service exam means you're going to end up as a diplomat, and you'll be wandering around the world 3 years, 3 years, 3 years, all around the world. Maybe you have a penchant for languages, and that's a good fit. But now also there's a Foreign Service track for people who are just interested in specializing in computer and systems and in software and knowledge management. Folks who actually aren't so much maybe as interested in learning Swahili as they are in making certain that the State Department has the adequate resources and understanding in a world that's increasingly dependent on technology, on cybersecurity, and how to make sure that we communicate effectively and stay up to date as technology moves so quickly. That track is called, I think it's the Information...
There's the Information Management Specialist, which is called IMS, and you know government loves acronyms. So it's the Information Management Specialist, IMS, and it's a vacancy announcement that opens usually about once a year. So if you're interested and you think you want to move around every 3 or 4 years internationally, and then also come back to Washington, D.C. and serve some tours, both helping communicate with our embassies in the field, and also back with Washington, and also with host country and foreign government. So it's a really exciting career. We have a lot of folks in our office that work on this track, and this job changes all the time. Just as technology changes so quickly, we have no idea in 5 years, 10 years, what technology we're going to have and what we need to be doing with it. So it's really important that we have folks like you that are up and coming and know this stuff and want to work with us and work with government and help move this all forward together.
So we're here to talk about those tracks, those ways in which the State Department would love to have more folks who are skilled and interested and want to help the State Department apply. But we're also here with some special opportunities, some special things that are new, and one of which is called the Foreign Affairs Information Technology Fellowship. So once again, as Bridget said, an acronym, it's FAIT, the Foreign Affairs Information Technology Fellowship. Particularly for the faculty members who are here, I'm so glad you came. And it's so important that you're aware of these opportunities. So particularly when you get some students, you're interacting with students who you think really have tremendous capacity, interest in the world, interest in service, and can really make a contribution. This fellowship is brand new. We'll leave sheets with Jessica. And in fact, we'll leave information sheets on many, many things with Jessica. But the Foreign Affairs Information Technology Fellowship is available in 2 tracks. One is for people who are sophomores in university, and the other is for people who are graduating and who would like to go to graduate school. So the State Department, for the first time, is offering to pay for the last 2 years of university or for the graduate school, a couple of years of graduate school, in return for 5 years of service with the State Department as an IT information technology specialist. That's a wonderful offer, and it's like I was calling it yesterday the golden ticket, because it's paying for your university and at the same time it's promising you an excellent job, which will probably turn into a great career if you want to make it a career. It's a commitment, so it's something you can say, no, I don't really want to wander around the globe for the rest of my life. Or you could say, oh wow, I absolutely love this. So it's something for those people who are really interested in IT and interested in the State Department. This is an unbelievable opportunity available for the first time.
And so we've been talking about careers, but we know also that sometimes students might be looking for internships or temporary service, and so we just wanted to share with you a few of those other options in addition to careers that you might also be interested in. So this is our careers.state.gov website, which is where you can go to find all U.S. Department of State internship opportunities, fellowships, presidential management fellowships. You can find information on when all the vacancy announcements will be opening. And so this is a great place to remember, careers.state.gov. And another resource that I think we should mention too is that we have diplomats in residence. And so these are State Department employees who are embedded at different universities. And so you have diplomats in residence for every region. And so it's great to know who your diplomat in residence is. And you can find that at the top through the search button for diplomats in residence. And they can help guide you through application processes, any information. Once we go back to Washington, D.C., they're around here and they can help you navigate internships and careers as well. So a few of the special things we wanted to share with you. So in addition to the State Department, across government, I always believe that we're one government. So even though we work with the State Department, we also work with the Department of Centers for Disease Control. We work with the Environmental Protection Agency. And so oftentimes there are positions that are available that work across government agencies. And they're very tech focused. So some of these that we wanted to share with you are, has anyone heard of the U.S. Digital Service? Has anyone heard of the U.S. Digital Service? So these folks started, they were created a few years ago, and they're kind of like the firefighting team. They come in when there's a tech crisis, and they work together, and they rebuild websites, and they build apps, and they make sure that the U.S. public can access information that it needs to in a way that makes sense to them. So they have user experience folks, they have UI, they have people that do agile development, so really fast-paced tech work. So U.S. Digital Service, and this is a temporary government service, so it's up to 5 years. So if you wanted to come in, work for government for a few years, and then go back or go somewhere else, this is a great way to do that.
And it's a wonderful networking experience as well. So if you've got yourself into this, if you were picked for the U.S. Digital Services team, you then meet other people who are just like you across the United States who have come together to make the government better. Particularly this kind of charged political time, whether you think the administration is great or you don't like the administration right now, the U.S. government and the people of the United States need you. They need your service. They need your help. They need your excellence. So keeping the United States smart is up to us all. And so at this time, we need each other more than ever, I'd say.
And another group like Digital Service is 18F. And so these are folks that create digital standards across government. So again, another way of temporary government service is so they have a really great sort of cohort program. You're brought in and you're with your 50 other colleagues. And they're two really positive programs that we just wanted to make sure.
And the 18F guys and girls all seem to be having more fun than anybody else around the government.
Well, they do. And the 18F folks, they have this big open area. They're on their laptops and their couches, and it feels like a very startup environment. So I think a lot of times people think, oh, government, we're just buildings and bureaucracy. But there are really exciting areas within government, and I think a lot of those spaces are in the tech and IT and innovation.
And I think one of the ways in which you see that, Bridget, I think when we go into 18F to talk to those folks and to work with them, it's really transparent. I mean, there's no security. You're just walking in, and it's a big Google space, this big area, and the most important thing about government is transparency. The most important thing the United States government has is transparency. You can see how much somebody makes in government. Bridget and I were over in Tbilisi, Georgia, speaking at the Open Government Partnership Summit recently, and it's about allowing the people of the United States to They are the ones who own their government. The people, the government is the people. And not every country is that, and that's a really important part of us. And that transparency of what 18F is, the students there working on how is the user interface when somebody wants to go pay their taxes, what does that look like? How hard is it to access information? How can we improve it constantly?
And so we've been talking a lot about careers, but many of you, if you're still in school, you might be thinking more about internships. And oh, I'd like to do a summer internship with the State Department, or maybe at one of our embassies overseas. So I'm going to go back to the careers.state.gov site, and there's a whole section about internships, so intern here. So there's various different student programs. There are programs that will, where you can go overseas or you can go domestically. We have 10-week internships in person. We also have virtual internships that we're going to share at the very, very end. The in-person internships are 10 weeks. You usually apply about 8 months out. So if you're interested in the summer internship, the vacancy announcement for the summer internships will open this fall. And you can sign up for, there's a little button called Keep Me Informed at the top right here. And if you sign up there, put your email address in, you can see if you're interested in internships or fellowships or careers or foreign service vacancy announcements. So the internship program is really great. We always have interns. We always want interns. You have to be a U.S. citizen and you will have to do a background check. But so long as you get all your paperwork in on time, we're at e-diplomacy. If you'd like to intern with us, we always have a little drop down. So you can come be one of our interns in Washington, D.C. We would love that. If you go overseas, oftentimes there's housing that the embassy might have that will be provided. There are a few paid internships also, and we have a new program. It's called it's not the Foreign Affairs IT Fellowship, it's the Foreign Service Internship Program, and this is where your diplomat in residence can nominate you. So it's a really great way to sort of have an extra step up to do an internship program. Did I miss any? I'm trying to think.
No, but while you're on that point, Bridget, when you're talking about logging on to get more information, for our conversation with you all today, it would be very helpful for us to have your name and your email address and your year at school and major. If there was a way for Jessica, I don't know, Jessica was saying that it might be a way to collect that information, because then the recruitment folks at the State Department, and particularly within the IT division, will then get in touch with you to make sure that you have, current information about when new things open or when deadlines are coming up, to be able to inform you of that. So if we could collect that information today, that'd be super helpful for us.
And that also reminds me too, so we were talking about foreign service and rated into the foreign service is an exam. And the civil service positions, which is what I am, that are based domestically, all across government, you can find all these at usajobs.gov.
And usajobs.gov, everybody that's in this room who has just even in the slight back of their mind that they might be interested in ever taking a federal job for a year or 5 years or a career, it's worth it to find the time on a rainy day when we have the time to register at usajobs.gov. We have friends who are constantly working now as a team, a really passionate team, to upgrade the user experience of usajobs.gov. And traditionally it was just, you feel like, why don't you hit yourself, why don't you hit your head against the wall? It was so aggravating. It felt like somebody should pay you to register rather than reverse. And it was kind of a black hole. It felt like, okay, you went through all this to apply and then you never heard again. And that's changing. They're making this a career site, and one with a lot more empathy, a lot more connection to the individual. And once you register on usajobs.gov, then you are in touch with so many opportunities that it's absolutely worth it. And that leads us on to the last thing we're going to talk about.
So the last thing we're going to talk about is what we spend much of our time on.
Well, you used to spend all your time.
I used to spend 100% of my time on this. Has anyone heard of the Virtual Student Federal Service?
That's sad.
Well, now everyone will hear about it. So one thing the VSFS program, again, another acronym, Virtual Student Federal Service, VSFS. So in addition to in-person internships, we also have virtual internships. So we realize that not all students can take time away from class or from family commitments or work commitments to do those 10-week internships overseas or in Washington, D.C. And so what we did is create a program that allows students to engage while you're still in school for about 10 hours a week from September through May. So you can work anytime, whether it's, in between class breaks or you're a night owl or you like to wake up early in the morning. It's a very flexible program where you see all the positions that are available, not just at the U.S. Department of State, but at the CIA, at NASA, at the Smithsonian. And so every year what you can do is in the summer, it's a once-a-year program. You go to vsfs.state.gov and you go to see all projects. And this year we have over 500 projects that U.S. college students can apply to. And so these are working at things like graphic design, data visualization, translation, research, everything, not just IT. So whatever your interest and skills are, if you want to work on video production or you want to help...
I want to do social media for a U.S. mission abroad, like in Libya right now. We don't, our mission, our presence in Libya is much reduced because of all the danger, actually. And so people, like, we have a lot of interns in Michigan who speak Arabic and who are engaging every day with Libyan nationals to tell them about the United States and about possibilities for education in the United States and to remind the people of Libya of the friendship of the United States people. And that need for citizens to engage directly with, now more than ever, it's so easy to engage directly with the world. We need the help of this current student body to help us get it right all around the world. And the opportunities here are unbelievable. When I joined Bridget, I came from overseas. I was in Tunisia when when all the trouble was happening, when the Arab Spring was happening. And I moved back to the United States and I met up with Bridget. And at that time, this program was tiny. She started it all by herself, and it was just at State Department and USAID, which is the Agency for International Development. And together now, we have taken it. It's grown organically. It's obviously so successful. And now 60 agencies have asked in. And every year we have 5,000 students competing for these opportunities. The opportunities, I used to say to Bridget, when I was in embassies around the world, somebody would come in and say to me, "Oh, Nora, you have an intern starting next week." And I think, oh, what am I going to do? Who is this kid and what am I going to do with him? This is the opposite of that. This is the work that is there. And it's saying to students, who can do this work? Who is interested in this work? Who is capable to do this work? And then students compete to get that work. And the students who get that work frequently get credit at their universities. We don't do that for them. They present it to their university and say, look, I landed an internship with the Center for Disease Control, or I landed an internship with the National Institute of Health or with NASA. I'm going to be building a website over the coming 10 months. Can I get credit for this? And many universities say yes. In fact, many universities contacted us and saying, this is exactly what we've been looking for, which is real experience, real work experience. And it's virtual, which now is the future of work. I mean, all of us, Bridget and I, work remotely several days a week, and that's where work is going. So this proves that a student is able to do work for the future. And so you can either get course credit, or at the very least, you get a real work experience, and you get mentoring from somebody who, if you do your work well, will then fight for you, will write references for you, and will open doors for you. So both of us believe deeply in this program and in the power of the program.
And one nice part of VSFS too is that there's also this network of students who participated, of alumni. So there's 5,000 students who are also helping each other find jobs and careers and other internship opportunities. So it's this great positive wave across the U.S. of students helping government and of students helping each other. And it's really, we hear from students all the time. Years later, actually someone, this afternoon we're going to Purdue University, and we had an email from a student, or actually a former virtual intern, who said, wow, now I'm at Purdue, I'm working in the, in the faculty here. And it's just great to see that students, whether or not you're continuing with government service, that this program has helped students advance their careers forward.
Bridget, are we able to see the lawnmower job up here?
Oh, yeah. So this, okay. So,
I mean, this really is something for everyone. So,
so what's neat is that the offices of, maybe not lawnmower.
ADMC.
Yeah.
The American Battle Monument Commission.
So it's the design engineer, oh yeah. So the American Battle and Monuments Commission has a location in Luxembourg, and they were looking for students to, it says, well, their summary was, we're looking for someone to engineer, design, or come up with the best mowing machine possible, which can mow around the base of the headstones without either damaging them or staining them. So this is a very, very specific need, and oftentimes we find that these things come up that we need to solve, these challenges or these problems, and we just don't know how to do it. We need to do it really quickly, so we can rely on students to help us figure out how to do this. So there's really cool projects. They change every year. This past week, we welcomed 1,300 U.S. college students into the Virtual Student Federal Service Program. So it's a really exciting time. You apply in July. So every July, the entire month, you apply through USA Jobs. Interviews are conducted in August, and then students come on board in September. And we have little stickers that remind you to apply in July that we will leave around for everyone to remember to apply next year.
I think, as Bridget just said, there's a wave of energy here. When we went to Tbilisi, we put out on social media, on the Facebook thing, the BSFS Facebook, that we were headed to Tbilisi. And so a student contacted us who was a BSFS alumna, who happened to be at the Open Government Partnership Summit in Tbilisi, Georgia, because she was working with an NGO for an internship. And she came and met us. And then because the government and the many governments assembled there was a need for some note takers in meetings for the U.S. government, and we said, would you like to do this? We couldn't handle all the things that we were doing, and she said, oh, I'd love to do that. And so she was the U.S. government note taker for the meetings in Tbilisi. And opportunities build on themselves, obviously, you all know that, but once you open a door for yourself, then the doors will keep opening.
And one other story reminds me, this past summer we had a student who was a virtual intern, and she was trying to get an internship physically with an agency in Washington, D.C., and she was waiting to hear about her clearance, and some things didn't quite go through, and so she reached out to us, and she said, I'm a former virtual intern, I'll be here this summer, can I work with you guys? And we said, sure, of course. So it's because she was a virtual intern that we could then accommodate her in-person internship this summer. So again, it's just saying, yes to opportunities, putting your hat out there, trying for different, whether it's in-person internships, virtual internships, the Foreign Affairs IT Fellowship, whatever your interests are, there is a place for you within government.
I think one of the many reasons we both believe in this VSFS program is that not only is the government well served, but students have the ability then to see the variety of what jobs there are. Everything from an engineer who's going to build a lawnmower to not hurt the tombstones, to videographers, to social media, to people who are good in communication, to librarians, to scientists. So recently the Indian Health Service approached us and said, can we join? And we said, yeah, sure, everybody can. And the Indian Health Service, they had been having a hard time with recruitment. I didn't even know the Indian Health Service existed, actually. I didn't know there was a huge building in Washington with people with uniforms that say Indian Health Service, and it's doctors and nurses and pharmacists and sociologists who work just for the Native Americans, just for all the folks on reservations, Native Americans, to make sure that they're as healthy as they can be and well served. And they began with us with the need for 17 interns. And through that 17 interns already, they've got people who are coming to work for the Indian Health Service. And so they're really pleased because this was a way for them to say to the American people and American youth, we exist, we need you, we need your services. So I think that wraps us up, right?
I think so. We love to have questions, comments, suggestions, thoughts.
Bridget would love to answer every question.
Yes. Do I do microphone? Yes. Okay. Don't worry. I'll hold it.
For the Foreign Affairs IT program, was there a way that we can go to school and work for that? Okay.
Yeah, so that program, the Foreign Affairs IT program, so whether you're a sophomore in college or you're going to be entering graduate school, it's while you're still in school. And it provides 2 internships, so it provides full funding up to $37,000 each year. And then also has 2 internships, one in person in Washington, D.C., and then one in person at one of our embassies overseas. So it is while you're still in school. It's a new program, so we encourage IU Tech students to apply.
We would love IU Tech students to get this.
Yes.
So, if you did want to go to Washington, D.C. as an intern or an employee, how is housing there? Of course, it's going to be more expensive than Indiana, so what is your accommodation?
Yeah, there are. So depending on where you're living, there's different, it's cost of living, right? COLA, I think. We're looking at each other. Yeah, there's differential housing differential. So you will, even though your base salary is the same, you will, depending on what location you're at, become compensated differently. And of course, if you're overseas, housing is completely provided for you. So is schooling for children. There's a lot of great benefits. You don't have to,
the reality is just what you just said, which is that the virtual student federal service program, for an unpaid internship, of course it's better to do it remotely, it's better to do it from home, it's better to do it where you can afford to live. Once you get a paid internship, there are paid internships, once you get a paid internship, then it begins to make sense, And it just occurs to me that we didn't speak about the Consular Fellows program, which is, so basically if you're in school, you should definitely do a virtual student federal service internship if you're in school, because that will open doors. If you're graduating and you think, I want a job, then you could think about, if you're a computer specialist, you could think about that, the Foreign Service IMS, the Information Management Specialist, and we'll leave those papers here. Or you could think about the Consular Fellows Program. And the Consular Fellows Program is pretty new since, when I took the Foreign Service exam years ago and before my career happened, they didn't have this. This is a reduced commitment. So it's not a career, it's not necessarily a career, it's a bite out of the apple. It's doing the work of a diplomat. In other words, the front line when you're doing consular services, so services to help U.S. citizens abroad, and also to evaluate whether someone gets a visa into the United States or not. That's the Consular Fellows Program. And again, we'll leave these things here. That's after you graduate from university and you are taking your first job. That would be a great, wonderful job for somebody who's interested in the world. The Foreign Affairs Information Technology, is that what it is? Fellowship. That's so brand new and I kept calling it a golden ticket yesterday. It's such a deal that is a deal for somebody who's a sophomore or somebody who's graduated, a senior, because there's 2 tracks on that. And that you're in school and they're paying for it. And then you have a job. So that's such a deal.
And one program that reminds me we can also mention is the Civic Digital Fellows.
Oh, yeah.
So this is, I'll pull up their website. This is a new program. An undergrad student started it, and it's a way for college students to do paid internships with the federal government in tech fields, so whether it's visual design or UI or UX or development. It's called Civic Digital Fellows.
And the guy that started it was so impressive. Bridget and I were Skyping with him when he just was thinking this up. And the U.S. government appreciated his idea, and he got his first agency, I think was it Housing Development? Got his first agency to buy into the idea of paying students to come and help that agency catch up. It's just emerging technology. It's moving so fast, as your faculty know. It's moving so fast that to stay abreast of it, for the U.S. government relying on government funding and budgets, et cetera, it's hard. And so we need the help of students.
So this is our website. Any other questions and comments? Yeah.
Are there any local Indiana State job positions, or most of the ones that are going to be open and available? And I have a follow-up question. I graduate in the fall. Are there positions available, say, usually in January?
Yeah, so you'd be interested in like a civil service position, probably? Something more based in Indiana. Yeah, so at the USAjobs.gov site, you can actually search for federal positions all across the U.S. And so when you sign up here, you could look by location. What location would you like? Should we try
Indianapolis.
Indianapolis? Let's try it. So here, there are 207 jobs. So yes, there are local jobs too. And it's great because you can see the Federal Aviation Administration, Federal Highway Administration, U.S. Navy. I mean, there's so many opportunities, and you can sign up for alerts too. So if you knew, you're looking for a job in, 8 months or 10 months, you can also be notified when those openings will become available.
There are things called Pathways internships, and Pathways internships, again, if you sign up here at USA Jobs Like That, they'll send you alerts too. And the Pathways internship, I'm just thinking in my office, one of the fellows I work with, Steve Agne's daughter, in university, if you get a Pathways internship, they're paid positions and they're paid internships during your breaks from school, so like summer break or during Christmas break. This student works and she's very well paid, and it's a very good job, and it will turn into a career if she wants it to turn into a career. So I think everybody in the room, if you have any thought that you might want to work for the federal government as an intern or as a career, you should register on USA Jobs. There's nothing to lose, but about 2 hours of your time. Yeah. Unless you're like me and get really frustrated, and then it's 4 hours.
I'm bringing a question about the USA Jobs website. I have some experience applying with it in the past under a different category now, IT. It's a black box. You apply and months and months and months. There is a contact there. Sometimes they give the department. You hear nothing.
We'll give you a name and an email address, and you could send in that info, because there's a team of people as alive and passionate as the two of us right now who are working to improve that, because I had the same experience you did, and that experience is already improving. It's very difficult because they're doing that, administrating that across every federal agency, and you can imagine the bureaucracy they have to, the boxes they have to check. They work in a room like this, and there's sticky notes all over all the walls, trying to keep them straight to legally move ahead. And I think they would love your input, particularly if you have how recent was that black hole experience, and hopefully improving by now.
And even the application, the job announcement is very complicated. There is all this. If you have GS9, you should be able to do all the functions of GS7. And if you have GS7, you should be able to do all the functions of GS5. So it just keeps really, it's very complicated. And then the eligibility requirements are very limited. It says you need 21 hours of economics in college. That's about it. But people with PhDs are fine. And then after several months, I got several emails saying, because of the hiring freeze by the federal government, this job is closed.
And I think that's because, things can change so quickly. And as Norm mentioned, the USA Jobs team, they also realize that, different government agencies might use different words to describe the work that they're doing or the jobs that they're seeking candidates for. And so what they're trying to do is to make it more cohesive and streamlined. So if you're looking for a program analyst job, then if it's called program manager somewhere else, then you can also be alerted for when those come up. So we know that there are things to improve, and certainly the time frame is something, and the team at USA Jobs is so dedicated and passionate, because we all have to apply through USA Jobs too.
And we've all had I've had your same feeling. And the unfortunate truth, or I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate now, but the truth is there's no way around it. So you have to apply there if you want a federal job. And you have to apply there. You have to register there if you want to be a VSFS intern. And that opens doors. And so sometimes now in my mind I think, this just proves you have the patience for the bureaucracy. As I think it was Benjamin Franklin said, the government is only as good as the individual contribution. When I joined the Foreign Service, my mother would speak to me. She said, you like excellence. You will be so frustrated in the government. But the government's only as good as each individual contribution. And you must have patience. Yes, you must have patience. Because to try to get in and try to accommodate all the people's desires and all the legalities that tackling, it's difficult. But they're working really hard to make USA Jobs a better experience.
Hi there. I am interested in what the process is from the student perspective on applying for those virtual internships that start in July. So can you walk me through the steps that a student would take to have successful application?
Sure. So VSFS is once a year. So all the projects are posted on our website in June. And so you can go on and start to see everything that's available. So you go through and you pick your top 3 projects. And then in July, you go to usajobs.gov, and we have a very, very simple application. It's really short. You write a statement of interest, you pick your top 3 projects, you upload your transcript, and you submit your application. So that's any time during July.
Yeah, the USA Jobs one is the one that takes patience. The VSFS, once that vacancy announcement goes up, so if you register in USA Jobs anytime between now and next July, then you'll have the hard work done. And then on July 1, you can go in and you'll see that VSFS vacancy announcement, and you click that, and then ours is really easy.
And we're very personal too. So once the applications are all submitted, within the first week of August, we contact everyone. We send an email and we say, we're so glad you applied. Here's what you can expect. You might be, selected for an interview in August, and these are the deadlines. So we're very upfront and forward, so that you know exactly what to expect during the whole timeline. So if you have an interview set up, it could be a Google Hangout or a Skype or a phone interview. Someone might ask for a writing sample or a design portfolio, so that happens all during August. And then within the first couple weeks of September, all the offers have gone out with positions. And so you accept or decline it. You can be offered more than one position, but you can only pick one. So we know it's tough, but there's a lot of students that are also interested in doing a virtual student federal service internship. And the project starts the second week of September. And you work about 10 hours a week from September all the way through April or May.
Could you discuss the foreign service exam?
Sure.
Well, the foreign service exam has changed a lot since I took it, but I think, actually, I think Spencer's experience is the one closest at hand. The foreign service, the exam, now, when I took the exam, it was a written exam, and you didn't hear for 3 months whether you passed or not. Now you hear immediately whether you passed or not, and it moved on to the oral exam part. Well, it's next is a written. Now I think the foreign service exam is a written exam. You find out immediately whether you passed it or not. Then it moves to a written statement. There's a number of questions, and you're given a certain amount of time to respond to those questions, and then you submit those essays. And again, you're evaluated, and you're up or down. And then you go to an oral phase. And then that oral assessment is also immediate. You're told whether you get in or you don't get in immediately. So it's, or whether you pass or don't pass immediately. And then when I took it, by the time you found out whether you survived, then you were put on a list to get investigated for clearance. So somebody came and interviewed you, and you heard from your neighbors and friends and relatives that there's been a knock at the door, and they asked, like, what did you do when you were visiting, Paraguay? And now they put you, they don't guarantee you a job. In those days, it was like, wow, you passed, you're in if you're gonna survive the security exam. Now you get some sort of number that shows your ranking, and you get investigated. If you survive that, then you sit and wait for there to be an opening down to the number that you got. So a friend of ours got a 5.67, and he just found out the job offers were given to people who got a 5.7 or above. So he didn't make it. So he was dead. But he went and did this instead, so now he's living in a lovely home that's paid for, a 3-bedroom home in Laos, and he's on the visa line in an embassy in Laos, and he's going to take the exam again, and he's going to try again. So I think the process has changed. Definitely the exam is less, they've put a lot of thought into trying to rewrite the exam and make the whole exam experience to evaluate a broader skill set and a more diverse sampling of the American people. When I took the exam, they thought it was skewed toward white folks who went to fancy universities. And now that exam is more inclusive
And the whole process is more inclusive because it's important that diplomats represent the United States in all its flavors and all its cultures and all the sorts of people who make up the United States. So there's a strong effort to make sure that diplomats abroad look like us here.
Do you have any recommendations for veterans like myself that are here? Just recommendation or advice for based on the information that you're giving?
Yeah, so there's lots of opportunities on the USA jobs. There's veterans preference, so depending on how certain jobs are advertised, some are limited just to people already in the government, and some are open to the general public. And so there is veterans preference through USA jobs. So you do, there are different preferences for different categories, and so veterans preference is one of those.
And I did the same thing she did on the USA jobs.
So frustrating. Oh, it's so frustrating. I know. And we do invite you. I'll give you an email, and we do invite you to give that information in because we both wanted so much to change ourselves, you know.
And I think that's why it's so important that we're coming out and we're talking with folks all across the U.S. because we need to take this information back to Washington and it helps directly the people that are trying to improve these things. Like, yeah, it's important and it really makes a difference and it impacts people's lives.
I've had one positive experience with USA Jobs. So if you try hard enough, sooner or later you get one positive experience.
I just put up my USA Jobs folder in my Gmail, all these jobs that I applied and heard back nothing until the freeze came.
And the freeze is unfrozen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean that's very frightening. You can imagine how it is for those people working at USA Jobs. Their whole existence is to get people jobs, and then there's a freeze. And like, how frustrating is that? But I think one of the things that amazed us is the U.S. government is so big that there's jobs where one of the ladies said there were like 50,000 applicants to a job. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. And how you sort through those candidates, and how you communicate with those candidates, and how you communicate with those candidates in a human way, you know, so not just silence. That's quite a challenge for them, and they've pledged to meet that challenge. So I'm wishing them well, and we know them well enough that we are really wishing them well because they're passionate people who want to fix it, who've also been on the wrong end of it, you know. So for veterans, I know that many of the internships on VSFS. I mean, not that you're looking for an unpaid internship, but some of if you're in student status, the VSFS internships are available to you, and some of them are looking specifically for veterans. So that being a veteran would be a powerful, you know, the VA is one of our most energetic, enthusiastic supporters of VSFS. They depend on VSFS, and they frequently have projects they want veterans to handle the interviews, to do the communication, because they actually understand what they're talking about, and that has led to recruitment big time for VA. So I think our time is up. Jessica's looking at her watch.
Well, we have about 5 more minutes, and I just wanted to ask real quick. We encourage our students to present the best resume possible, and I wonder if you have any suggestions or tips on how their resume can reflect wellness, health, and education here at Ivy Tech and their previous work experience when they do apply for a federal job or internship.
So we've been very impressed, especially for the virtual student federal service, with the students' resumes. The talent that is out there across the U.S. is just incredible. And so I think describing your work, not just copying and pasting exactly what you did, but the impact that it made, or how it maybe changed something, made you go in a different direction, or kind of how it impacted you. And I think the statement of interest too is a really important part where you can actually really let yourself shine through, and not just copying and pasting your resume again, but really saying why you'd be great for this job. And I think USA Jobs has a resume builder, and you can use that, and you can be very thorough. So you don't have to have a one-page resume. You can explain a little bit more in depth the work that you've done.
And I think to follow on there is that for VSFS, sometimes we'll see students and it says, please pick 3 projects, and they pick the 3 projects, and then it says, write a personal statement of interest. And some students don't. So those students, do you think they ever get picked? No. So the personal statement of interest is everything. And in a resume, it's also everything. It's the 2 seconds somebody's going to spend looking at your piece of paper before they chuck it, or before it gets buried on their desk. So that, your name and your, who are you? What do you have, what are you bringing forward? In my case, so I'm good at languages, I'm good at talking, but I'm also really creative, and that matters. It matters to, in my job, the many things I am. And all of us are many parts. And the thing that makes you you is different from everybody else. And so if you can explain quickly why you want what you're asking for, why you think that fits you, that's what you need to deliver. So you need to do that in a resume, and you need to redo that resume. Bridget has taught me this, is that, not so much today, but usually when we make a presentation, Bridget will say, well, let's think about what we're presenting tomorrow. And I'll say, well, we did it last week, we just do it again. And she's like, no, you need to do it for that group. And in a resume, and I think that's true of the millennials of now, that what we used to do is we used to take a presentation, or professors maybe gave the same talk over and over. Now we're moving so quickly, and it's so possible to redo something. It's not, in the old days we had to type, and now it's, type on a typewriter. Now it's so quick, and you can do something fresh and new and good for a particular audience. And you should do that for a resume. You're applying for a job, make that resume fit that job. Say why you want that job. When you're applying for VSFS, you write that personal statement of interest. You have to write a personal statement of interest that goes toward all 3 projects you picked. But you can, in that little personal statement of interest, it could be little, but you can say, who are you? Why did you pick those 3? Why do you want this? And somebody will be moved by your statement. Somebody will say, wow, that's the student I want. So I would say, let yourself shine. Just in a few sentences, who are you? And somebody will respond.
And one last thing to add to about that is typos and little mistakes like that. Have someone just look over before you submit an application. Just take one more look here, because I know sometimes when I'm working on something, I might not see an error that's been there forever and ever and ever, and someone else can find it. But we know that when sometimes supervisors are reading through application, they won't even move beyond if there's spelling errors
or grammatical errors. We look at each other's work constantly, because when you're moving quickly, you frequently forget a word. You just don't type it. Your brain's going too fast. Make somebody else take a look at it. That's just smart. Okay, that's it. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, Ivy, so much for coming and talking to us.
So we have a bunch of stickers. I'll leave some stickers by Nora's yellow slicker, and the stickers by Slicker over here.
Okay, and these are for you just, a lot of different things.
And what I'll do is I'll get these posted up on our Higher Ivy site as well, so you can reference this, or if you want to come up and take them right now as well. And after we're speaking about the resumes, if at any time you need somebody to look